Hello, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome to another episode of Taste Test. It has been over a year, my friends, since I have filmed my last Taste Test video series in which I test other booktubers' taste in books to see how our tastes align. I am so excited to be doing this particular episode because I am going to be reading Olivia from OliviaReadsALatte's favorite books. I texted Olivia, I want to say like 3 months ago at this point, asking what her favorite books were so that I could get this video going because I realized, honestly, there's only a handful of booktubers that I watch that I actually take book recommendations from. A lot of them I watch just like purely for vibes, but I feel like I do tend to pick up books from Olivia's videos, and it just got me thinking like, okay, do our tastes actually align? How similar are our reading tastes? So she gave me the list, and immediately I had read, I believe, 9 of the 10 that she sent me that were like her top 10 faves. So we had to get a little bit creative. Olivia actually sent me kind of like a backup list. I picked some books from that list as well. I think the only book that I hadn't read from her favorites list was Words of Radiance, which I will be reading in this here video today. So it's gonna be an interesting one. It's gonna be a doozy. I want to run you through the books that I'm going to be reading. Before I do that, I have to tell you guys briefly about something that I don't like, and that would be spam texts and calls, which is where the sponsor of today's video, Aura, comes in. I'm definitely not the only person who gets inundated with spam texts and calls. It really seems like scammers have gotten so good at infiltrating our phones, right? Like I get texts with little links say, oh, your shipment has been delayed, and I'm like, wait, I did just order something recently, but of course, the text is not actually from who I think it's from. It's from a scammer trying to get my information. Or I'll get a phone call from someone with the same area code that I have, but it's not actually someone I know. It's a scammer. And I know one of the reasons that I get many of these spam texts and calls is because big companies just really can't seem to keep our data safe. Recently, Ticketmaster was hacked, and the data of 560 million users were put up for sale on the dark web. The data stolen includes full names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and credit card information. At best, I'm going to be getting more spam than I usually do. At worst, someone's going to be committing fraud with my information. So what is Ticketmaster doing about this, you might ask? Absolutely nothing. They said that they didn't think that this is going to have a material impact on their overall business. So basically these companies are collecting our data, but doing absolutely nothing to protect it, which is why I use Aura. Aura alerts me when my data has been part of a breach or leaked on the dark web. It gives me fraud alerts if anyone tries to use that data to access my credit or bank accounts, and it removes my information from data broker websites, so I get less spam. I also get things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, password manager, parental controls, identity theft insurance, all in one app at one affordable price. So if my information was compromised by Ticketmaster, I wouldn't worry because Aura is doing the hard work of keeping me safe online. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to data breaches, and you don't have to either. You can go to aura.com/chandler.ainsley, try your first 2 weeks for free, also linked in the description down below. Now let me quickly run you through the books I'm going to be reading for this video before we get into the vlog. First up, I have The Davinci Code by Dan Brown. If there's one thing about Olivia, it's that she likes Dan Brown, which feels a little inexplicable considering taste in books tends to run, I feel, in a very different direction than Mr. Dan Brown. But when asked for a favorites list, Olivia provided this, and it is a book that is very popular, I would say, or was very popular when it came out a few years ago, and I kind of want to understand what that hype is about, so I'm going to be reading that one. We also have Listen for the Lie, which I'm very excited about. This is a thriller that I don't actually know anything about, but I'm excited for it because I feel like if there is one genre that I tend to gravitate towards when it comes to Olivia's recommendations, thriller is definitely that genre, so excited about this one. Words of Radiance is an interesting choice for sure. I wouldn't say an interesting choice so much as a long ass choice because Olivia, I guess, wants to see me suffer. The September House is a horror novel, which I'm assuming is about a spooky old house. So we're going to find out about that together. And then lastly, I think this is the most like on brand thing I've ever heard. The London Seance Society. This is a historical fantasy. If there's one thing I don't like, it's historical fantasies, but I'm gonna read it because Olivia likes it. Let's get into the vlog portion of this video, shall we? Why wax poetic when I can just like actually read the book and tell you what they're about? Let's get started. Let's get into it, shall we? I want to state for the record, not that this is really relevant or that important, but Olivia texted me actually just before I sat down to film this, which was like kind of perfect timing. We're not talking about books, she and I, right now, but yeah, just felt like, you know, kismet, coincidence. We're reading the most Olivia book first. The most Olivia book on this list, I believe. Granted, I haven't read the others yet, so I don't entirely know, but I do know that the London Seance Society by Miss Sarah Penner just screams Olivia, because I know that if there's one thing she likes, and if there's one thing that I think of when I think of her reading taste, it is these sort of like historical fantasy type books, especially if they're set kind of in like the, I would say like 17 to 1800s period. Like if people are wearing them little lace up Victorian boots and running around solving mysteries and shit, shit, that's Olivia to me. This is basically that. So we have our main character, Lena, and her sister was murdered, which is not great, you know, not great to see your sister dead. She approaches this woman named Vaudeline, who is a spiritualist who is really, really good at talking to the dead and solving high-profile mysteries and or like crimes, I guess, because she can talk to dead people. Our girl is apprenticing with this person so that eventually she will maybe learn how to talk to the dead herself, or this person will talk to the dead for her. She needs to like get in this person's good graces so that, you know, this person could ostensibly help her. But along the way, Vaudeline is asked by the London Seance Society, they're in Paris, did I say they're in Paris? Asked to come to London to solve this mystery, right? There is like a gentleman's seance club, which like, the vibes aren't right. I just don't feel like men are in touch enough with their emotions to be good spiritualists. Anyway, that's besides the point. Vaudeline's asked to come and solve this mystery surrounding, I believe, one of the members of the club. He dies, he dies. He's dead. And they're trying to figure out exactly what happened to him because they tried to do the work themselves, because like this is their whole thing too. They also do seances and they couldn't really communicate with him. So like, we gotta call in the big guns. We need to call in this chick. Anyway, Lena tags along with Vaudeline. I want to say Baudelaire. It's Vaudeline Delaire. Anyway, tags along with her girl V. Let's just call her V. I just feel like that's more casual. It's more friendly. It's like we're all friends here, okay? She tags along with V and she's solving mysteries. But guess what? Her sister is friends with the guy who is heading this investigation into the murder of the guy in the London Seance Society. And he's also a fellow member. I think his name's like Morley or something like that. She notices that his hat is one that her sister had. So she's like, my sister be fucking this guy. He must know something about this. But she can't just like flat out ask him, I don't think, about what happened to her sister because he's not supposed to know her identity. He figures it out pretty quickly. But anyway, I'm telling you the plot of this book because I don't know what my feelings are. To be honest, I feel like if there's one way in which Olivia and I's taste definitely diverge, and I knew this ahead of time, it's this sort of story. I do not like historical fantasies. I just never really have. They never really connect with me. I like some made up shit when it comes to my fantasy. Not that this is pure, I mean, it kind of is fantastical. I don't think it's supposed to be like pure fantasy, but regardless, I just don't really like it. For some reason, the vibes are not great. I think that's also probably why the Clockwork trilogy, I don't remember the name, not Dark Artifices, Cassandra Clare series that everybody fucking goes crazy for. That's my least favorite one, for the record. Not my least favorite one. Sorry, Will, Jem, and Tessa. Sorry. It's just not my thing. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. I like cell phones. I have an iPhone face. That might be influencing me a little bit. Just kidding. I don't. I really don't. I look like, without makeup on especially, I look like those old-timey paintings of like inbred, like royals. So I have no jawline to speak of. I don't hate it. I'm like mildly intrigued. I just kind of don't know why we need to know why her sister's dead. And that like might be fucked up. Like, here's the thing. I've never had someone in my life be murdered. I've never really felt compelled to solve the mystery from there. And like, I think if my sister were dead, I'd probably want to know what happened. But it just feels like a weird way to go about things. And like my brain is logicking in that way. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know about all that. That being said, it's fine. It's a fine book. I think I'm liking this more than The Lost Apothecary because it is feeling more fantastical. I know I just said I don't like historical fantasy. What I hate more than historical fantasy though is historical fiction. So this is better than that book in a lot of ways. Yeah. I mean, I guess that one does have a little bit of fantasy elements. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I like this long-winded clip though. I'm feeling very Olivia. Okay, so I finished the London Seance Society, the first Olivia book, and I think in the last clip I talked quite a bit about how the vibe was giving very much Olivia. And I think not only is the vibe giving that, it's just that this book was purely vibes. Like, that's all that this was. I don't want to spoil this because it is a bit of a mystery. Like, that's kind of the point of the book. Let me just tell you, I didn't find it particularly mysterious or particularly compelling. I knew this wasn't really going to be for me. And that is on me for selecting this to read. That being said, I think I already told you, Olivia gave me a list of books that she really enjoys. I've read the majority of them before, so pick-ins were a little bit slim in terms of favorites for this here video. I don't know why the country just slipped out, but it does happen. I live in Texas, and guess what? So does Olivia. But yeah, this book was not terrible. I think that if you're someone who enjoys a kind of like Edwardian, Victorian England sort of mystery, and you like lesbians or ladies who like ladies, this could be for you. I like the latter half of that. I don't love the setting and the execution of the story. I think this author's maybe just not for me, and I could have already told you that after having read The Lost Apothecary, but I thought I would give it an honest try since this is one of Olivia's favorites. So, do our tastes align in this way? No, but I thought we would just get this one over with first because I think we have a much better chance of finding books where we both align by reading something else right? Right. Okay, so I'm 50% into the September house. This is due back to my library tomorrow, so that's why I'm trying to read this one next. This book is about Margaret and Hal, and they have been living in rental situations for pretty much their whole life. They have a daughter who is now fully grown and like flown the nest. The daughter's like 30, so I'd assume the parents are in their 50s or 60s, maybe even older, not entirely sure. But anyway, Hal and Margaret have lived their entire life in rentals until they come across the perfect, beautiful Victorian mansion in the town that they live in. And they're like, wait, we have to buy this. Like, it's in our price range. We can do it. Until strange things start happening, like the walls bleeding and ghosts haunting them and just all manner of fuckery basically occurs. And one day Hal goes missing and Margaret doesn't really give a fuck, frankly. She is living the life because the spirits that are living in her house are actually people that she has like begrudgingly made friendships with, and there's like a ghost who kind of like cooks her dinner and stuff. I don't know, she's living her life until her daughter Catherine's like, hey mom, where's dad? And she's like, I know you ask about him every time you call, but like, what would you say if I told you he just wasn't here? He like left and we don't really know where he is. And her daughter freaks out, comes to this Victorian mansion and is trying to find her father, Hal. Margaret doesn't really have any interest in this. She's just trying to like keep shit together while Catherine's staying with her because Catherine isn't really aware that there's spirits and shit. She also doesn't really think her daughter would believe her about this. We're trying to kind of figure out, I guess, what happened in this house to make it haunted. By us, I mean Margaret's trying to figure that out. Catherine, again, she's doing her own shit. She's trying to find her daddy. So I think what we're going to find out is that Hal's dead somewhere in the house, probably in the basement, because we're getting big basement vibes there. There's a lot of crazy shit that's happening in this book. I think what I like about this is that it's horror, but it's kind of funny. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but the things that Margaret does are just comical to me. The idea that anyone would be okay with the things that are happening in this house, and she's just like, you know what? It's still my dream house. Girl, I get it. To be honest, in this economy, I kind of get it. I'm kind of vibing with this. It's fun. It's not like uber serious. I don't expect this to be like so gripping horror that I'm like, I can't take the gore. It's mostly just been funny, and I like that. I kind of like this sort of book. It's giving good vibes. It's giving good vibes, and I think that's what we're learning in this video here is that the books Olivia likes have good vibes, and that makes sense because everything about Olivia is a vibe. Her aesthetic, her channel, her vlogs, everything is a vibe. So having fun with the fucking scary house. So I'm gonna finish this book, and then I think I'm moving on to something else after. Wow, I think I'm moving on to something else after. She's a poet. She truly is a poet. I don't know what that's gonna be, but I'll keep you posted. I don't think it's gonna be tonight though. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's gonna be tonight because I actually need to reread The Way of Kings before I start in on another one of Olivia's faves, you know? Ayo, multiple weeks later, check. I had to take a little bit of a break because I was a little bit intimidated. I have much to update you on, my friends. First up, finished the September house, like, very soon after I last updated you on it, so it's been a second, and I don't remember that much. Just kidding. I remember exactly what happened in this crazy-ass book, and I have to say, I feel like this does give major Olivia vibes after having finished it. It's definitely a weird one. And I don't want to spoil this because it is honestly one of the weirdest and like kind of most fun things I've ever read. That doesn't mean that I loved it. That doesn't mean that it was like a good book for me, but it was entertaining as fuck. And I feel like whenever I consider Olivia's favorites and whenever I just think of Olivia, I think of vibes, you know? And I think I've said it a couple times already in these last two clips, but I feel like Olivia likes books based on vibes, and that's not a bad thing. I think that we all read for different reasons, and Olivia seems to very much like vibes. This one, let me just say for the record, was, like I said, just like the most crazy batshit thing I think I've ever experienced. This woman, I don't want to say that she's like delusional, but she is seeing all kinds of crazy shit. And by her, I mean, I think is it Margaret? I can't remember the lady's name, but the lady whose husband kind of like goes missing, she is starting to see things, you know, and this house is wild. Absolutely wild. I liked when the daughter came to town because I feel like that's when shit really hit the fan and you started questioning like who you could believe, the like basically like the narrator of the story, her own mind. I think I'd personally rate this one like 3 stars because it's not really my kind of like horror thriller. I think it was like good for what it was, don't get me wrong. I think it was a little too off the wall at the end of the book. I mean, the whole thing was really off the wall, but I feel like the execution of the ending of this book, I like simultaneously loved and hated, and I don't really want to explain why that is, again, because I feel like if you are interested in the premise of this book, you should pick it up because it's certainly entertaining. It is certainly entertaining. You know, I was sitting down actually to tell you about my 50% thoughts on Words of Radiance, but I'm not going to do that because my camera's actually about to die, but I will be back after my little trip to the gym to tell you how I'm feeling about that. Spoiler alert, I am enjoying it. I'm looking very glamorous and professional to talk to you about Words of Radiance. I'm back from the gym, obviously, and I obviously need a shower. But it was imperative, it was crucial that I talk to you about this book first, because I am actually planning on not taking a shower. I'm going to be in the bath, and in the bath I will have my little AirPods in, and I'm going to be listening to more of this shit because I'm stupid. And I keep putting this video off and filming clips for it because I'm intimidated. I'm intimidated by some of these books, Miss Olivia. I need to finish this video tomorrow, so I'm gonna be speed running some stuff. I'm not really speed running. I'm gonna be reading at the same speed I normally do, but I'm gonna be attempting to finish this book and 2 others tomorrow. So let's chat, shall we? This is a book that's challenging to talk about because it's the second book in a series, and it is a complex high fantasy world. If you know anything about me, if you've been here any length of time, I like fantasy. I never pick it up because I'm lazy. I used to love fantasy. It was easily my favorite genre before I started YouTube. The problem is that with YouTube, I try to read at a pretty high volume, and I can't read at a high volume if I'm only reading fantasy, you know? And also a girl likes romance, okay? And most adult fantasy doesn't really have great romance, though I am actually kind of impressed or like enjoying a romantic subplot in this book. That being said, I'm gonna try to break down what this book is about in a way that doesn't spoil anything, that will perhaps be entertaining to people who have not read the series and have no interest in the series. Let's break it down for you. We are in a world where there used to be these like powerful people called the Knights Radiant, and they had these really badass like armor and or blades, and they left them behind when they left the world, okay? And now, many years into the future, people, just regular old people, have these plates and have these blades, and the only people that have them are like really high up, like high princes and fancy people in this country, okay? This one particular kingdom is like fighting essentially like native people who are not really people on their own land for these things called gem hearts. What the gem hearts do, I'm gonna be honest, I'm still frankly not entirely sure, even 2 books in. The main players that we have, I would say, we'll keep it simple. Let's just keep it to 4 people, okay? We've got Shalon, who's a 17-year-old who is trying to save her family by interning for this like badass scholar. She's excited about the prospect because she actually like wants to learn from this person, but also she's trying to like steal from this woman. So that's Shalon. Then we've got Yasna, who is the person that she is interning for. She is the sister to the king, and she's kind of a bitch. I love her so much, okay? Then we've got Dalinar, who is the brother of the old king who just died. He was a good king, people liked him, whatever. Dalinar is kind of like jaded because of the death of his brother. He's also like high up in the army. He's like doing all of these sort of like, you know, little skirmishes to win some gem hearts. But he doesn't really seem to get along with the other high princes because while he does want money, I guess, not really, he really just wants, oh, you really just want pets. Is that what's going on? He very politely tapped on my thigh for some pets. Dalinar, he really just wants these visions to stop happening. He keeps getting these visions from the olden days. You know, those people with the plates and the blades? He had visions from those fuckers. And then we've got Kaladin. Has been through a lot. We learn a lot about him in the first book. He was the son of a surgeon. He was training to be a surgeon. He ends up going into the army. Really wanted to be in the army, but he like didn't actually at the same time. This thing's confusing, okay? But he ends up winning some like shard plate in some sort of battle, but he doesn't get to keep it because someone steals it. Basically, if you win it, you're supposed to be able to keep it, okay? But he doesn't get to keep it. He instead gets put into slavery, which is fucked up. He's sold to basically be like an indentured servant sort of situation, carry these bridges so that other people can fight. Anyway, he becomes very successful in that. He ends up working for someone, I don't really want to spoil the book, but he ends up working for someone in this book that we've been introduced to, and now he's no longer a slave. He's part of the King's Guard. Okay, cool. This book, I don't really want to get into the plot of it because, like, again, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we've got a whole cast of characters. We're finding out more about this world, about this magic system, and this book, I would say, is very political and very politics heavy compared to the first book. The first book, we are getting some minor introduction into this world, into this religion, into this magic system, and we are really meeting the characters where they're at and starting to learn their character motivations. I think the first book really gets you to understand the characters on a level where you're like, okay, everybody's going through some shit and everybody's going to play such a different role in how things are going to unfold in future books. And I didn't appreciate it very much, I think, when I read that first book. But now that I'm in the second book, I can really appreciate feeling like I know these characters, right? Like, I know these people. I could have dinner with them, ask them questions, and like basically know the answers before they answer. You know what I mean? Like, I know these people. And so this book is really those people basically starting to come together, because in the first book, they're all sort of like disparate and they're all in different places. Now they're coming together, not necessarily for like the common good, but they just happen to kind of be in the same place for various different reasons. We're seeing how those people interact and sort of what their impact on each other is and the politics of this world. Like, for instance, Kaladin, now that he is no longer enslaved, is part of the King's Guard. He is influencing the politics of where he is at. He is introducing them to concepts that they might not have been familiar with. He's giving an outsider's perspective and is giving some really valuable information to Dalinar, right? He's also getting to know some of the other characters in the books, like Adolin, who is Dalinar's son, who is, I can't spoil it, I'm not going to, but has something to do with another one of the characters that I spoke about. And so, all this to say, I am enjoying this book. Like, I think that if you read the first book in this series and you're kind of like intrigued but unsure if you should continue, I would recommend continuing, because I think that that first book is a lot of exposition and a lot of setup for the characters, but this book is where things start really happening and we're starting to understand why this old man is having visions. Okay, Dalinar's not that old, but like why this guy's having visions and why things are happening that have never happened before. It's fun. It's fun the way it's unfolding. I will say, I did have to ask Hayden, who has read all 4 of these books that are out, if I was missing anything, because the one thing that is a little bit frustrating as a reader is not having all the information that you want, right? And I think that Brandon Sanderson does a good job at like giving you enough information to where you're not like, what the fuck is going on? But there are so many questions that are unanswered that I'm like, am I missing something? Like, is my reading comprehension not there, or is this not really been revealed yet? Again, I checked with Hayden and he was basically telling me like, oh no, you're on the right track. Like you were understanding all that's being told. There's some things that I'm having a really hard time with. Mostly this idea of like gods and gods being dead and the people that came before, like Knights Radiant. I don't know. I just don't really understand them. Don't really understand the Parshendi people. Again, the like kind of native people of the land. I don't think they're human. So are they people? I don't know. If it sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about, I do, kind of, not really. I don't know. Do I understand why Olivia likes this? I will say, of all of the books that I think I'm going to read, this one, it doesn't surprise me that she enjoys it because it's a popular book and it is very good. Like, I am impressed with the writing, but it does surprise me because I wouldn't say this book is necessarily a vibe. Like, this book does not necessarily have like cozy vibes or like over the top campy horror vibes, or I don't know, just like all of the things I associate with Olivia, I don't necessarily think of when I think of this book. I would have thought that she would recommend me to read like a lot of YA fantasy, and when she actually gave me the list of like her favorite books, one, I had read all of them or most of them. 2, there really wasn't that much YA, I feel like, and I think that makes sense. I think she and I have both evolved a little bit past YA. Just kidding. I mean, we both read YA, so like, who am I to judge? Yeah, I don't know. I was just, I guess, surprised. I guess made the assumption that she enjoyed stories with a little bit of romance, or at least a little bit of like, again, like cozier vibes. I don't know how to like really define what makes an Olivia book, but I feel like this video is sort of reinforcing and also reinforming how I think of Olivia and Olivia's taste. So I'm having a good time with it. Like, I'm having a good time with this book, a good time with this video, and I'm not mad that I'm reading this book. But yeah, it's just challenging to talk about in any capacity, whether it's a spoiler or non-spoiler thing. I have a hard time with it. Yeah. I do want to know what happens, and I am wanting more secrets to be revealed, so excited to continue on. I did get spoiled for one thing, and I'm like, wow, I did not see that coming. I don't know when it happens, whether it's this book or the next book, but I'm excited to see kind of what goes on in terms of the royal family. Let's just put it that way. I can't believe I'm reading an adult fantasy book, and I can't believe that like I kind of want to read the other books in the series before the 5th one comes out. Apparently, Sanderson has envisioned this as a 10-book series with like each 5-book chunk sort of like being not a complete story, but you know, like being kind of its own thing. So I don't know. Now that the 5th one's coming out, oh my god, Pepper is in the little crack of my dresser or bedside table. I'm gonna show you. Okay. Creature from the Deep. Okay. I'm gonna go. I really want to get in my bathtub and just soak my sore muscles, smell a little better for tomorrow. Buckle up, baby. You're gonna be seeing a lot of me looking the exact same, talking about a lot of books. Hello, friends. I'm reading. I finished a book and I'm 50% into another book. So I am doing the damn thing. It is Wednesday and I'm determined to finish this video today. It's gonna happen, okay? First, let's talk about Words of Radiance, and then I will talk to you about other book that I've started and gotten 50% into, Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So first, Words of Radiance. moments. I really liked this, and I honestly wasn't sure until the 50% mark where things were going and if I was going to enjoy this one. I did enjoy the first book. I gave the first book 5 stars, but I feel like I wasn't sure lean, I guess, of this story. So much of this book is politics, and so much of this is characters and their, various different machinations. Once we get past the 50% mark, I'm not saying that goes away, but we do get more like one-on-one moments between characters. We get to see characters from like the first books who had no idea who the other was, meeting each other and starting to understand each other, and developing complex relationships. I especially loved the relationship that was built between Shallan and Kaladin. I knew that they were both complex characters who had some really dark shit in their pasts, but I guess I just didn't really think about how similar they are in some ways, and also how different they are in how they handle the hard things that they've been through. I really enjoyed those moments in the book. I also really liked Shallan and Adolin's moments, really liked the way that Dalinar was able to like bring people together as the book carried on. There was just so much about this book that I really enjoyed, and so much that surprised me, I guess. The like climax of the story that happens at the very end, I feel like was awesome too. Like in the first book, we do have some moments of like, action, but this book was definitely more action-packed near the end, which I think made me even more excited to carry on with the series, which kind of sucks because I have no idea when I'm going to pick up that third book, but I really enjoyed this one. And I will say, of all of the books that I'm reading for this video, this is the one that I feel like I don't really understand why Olivia likes it. Not because it's not a good book, but I feel like, again, when I think of the things that I associate with Olivia, like when I think of the thrillers that she likes, I think like, domestic drama. When I think of the horror that she likes, I think like over the top stuff. When I think of the fantasy that she likes, I think either like kind of YA fantasy with good vibes, or historical fantasy that's also kind of a vibe. And so this doesn't really fit into any of those categories. And so it surprises me that she likes it. So I'm gonna have to text her later today and just ask, what about Words of Radiance do you like so much? Maybe she fucks with the characters as heavily as I do. Maybe that's really what it comes down to. But regardless, this was a 5-star read for me, and I genuinely really enjoyed this. I didn't expect not to, but I just wasn't sure if I would continue to enjoy this series. And it also feels kind of weird for me, I guess, to like rate things that are so outside of my comfort zone. I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but when you're kind of a genre reader, like when I pretty much primarily read romance, I have a hard time knowing how to rate other things, because the best fantasy book I've ever read is never going to compare to my favorite romances, because romance is my genre. It's what I love. It's what I come back to. It's what I would like to write one day. So I feel like I have a hard time, but when I think about this book, think about everything that it did right, I don't feel like I can give it anything less than 5 stars. It's such a richly complex world with really cool characters, and I wasn't really bored at all through this like 45-hour long audiobook. So hats off to you, Brandon Sanderson. Maybe me and Olivia's adult fantasy taste line. I don't know. Let's talk about Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So this one's really interesting. It's about our main character, Lucy, who is accused of murdering her best friend, Savannah. She has been living in California for a little while after like the death of her friend, trying to kind of just avoid any sort of scrutiny after her friend passes away. She had blood on her, Lucy did, and also like skin under her fingernails. And so even though there wasn't enough evidence to really get a trial going, a lot of people assume that Lucy is the perpetrator. And she is a woman who definitely has a bit of an attitude, and I think that's part of the reason why people kind of assume that she did it. It's like, she's not necessarily a bad person, but not exactly super likable either. Savannah, I think, is a character or a person that people are definitely venerating, I guess. Like, after she has died, people are really like putting her up on this pedestal after she passed away. As the story unfolds, we're starting to understand that maybe she wasn't quite as perfect as people are like trying to get us to believe. Also, all of this is sort of at the forefront of people's minds because there is a like famous podcast host who's really handsome and kind of a charmer who is trying to solve this murder. He has successfully solved a cold case in the past, and now he's trying to solve this one. And he is in the small town that Lucy and Savannah are from because Lucy is back in town for her grandma's birthday, and he's hoping to get an interview with her. I think she actually agrees to an interview, though we haven't gotten it yet. And there's also an interview going on right now in the book between Lucy's ex-husband and the podcast host. So honestly, it's a good time. This is a really interesting thriller. Like, yes, we do have some podcast chapters, which I think kind of breaks up the narrative in a way that's fun, but I also like the sense of humor that's included in this story. Like, not only the kind of like over the top things that happen between like members of Lucy's family, but also just like the on-page humor of all of the characters, and honestly of Lucy's like narrative. Her dialogue inside of her head is pretty funny. I am really fucking with this. I'm really appreciating this. This is like my kind of thriller. I have like two things that I'm looking for when I'm picking up a thriller, right? I either want something that's like compulsively readable, kind of funny, kind of over the top, and like goofy, which is kind of what I associate this with, or I want something that is cerebral, very hyper realistic. So think like a Karen Slaughter book, except for Pretty Girls, because I thought that was too over the top. I like stuff that feels like it could actually happen, and it's more about like the mindset of the person, I guess, who did the killing. So yeah, more of a psychological thriller. I like those too. But yeah, this is really scratching an itch, and I was kind of worried going into it, because if anything gives like a whiff of domestic thriller, normally I'm like, God, I don't really care about these people cheating on each other. Like, please, that's not the kind of thriller I'm looking for. But this one, again, I think it's a sense of humor, and just the way that the book is written is so well done that I'm like invested, and I don't even really care at this point what the outcome of the story is, like whether we kind of figure out Lucy's amnesia. She claims she has no idea what happened the day that her friend died. I don't honestly care if she was the killer or if it was someone else. I just kind of don't care the outcome. I'm just like along for the ride, which I'm happy with, honestly. I like that for me. So I'm gonna finish this book before I go to my bar class, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna read the Davinci Code. The fact that I signed up to read the fucking Davinci Code is kind of crazy, but I kind of want to know the hype, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those books that's talked about a lot, or at least it was in the past, and I know fuck all about it, so I'll be figuring that out later, I guess. To say that I'm having an interesting day is a polite way of saying I'm having a really fucking terrible day, which is impacting this video, but that's okay. Let's talk about books, shall we? I finished Listen for the Lie, and I actually really enjoyed this. I feel like this book is totally on brand for Olivia. I feel like she tends to like these domestic thrillers with a bunch of drama, and when I tell you there was endless fucking drama in this book, I'm not exaggerating, but it was all like that kind of small town drama that feels realistic, and there were so many moments that I was curious about, like whether or not they would lead to something, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't say there were red herrings necessarily, but there were a lot of moments where I was like, does this mean this person had some involvement in what happened? Like, the ending of this book made a whole lot of sense. Like, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, that's totally out of left field, or oh, I'm bored by the person that did it. Like, I was pleased with how everything kind of worked in the end. Yeah, it was really satisfying, genuinely, and I'm glad I picked it up. I mean, this has good ratings on Goodreads. I think it has like over a 4-star. Kind of rare for thrillers. I feel like they don't tend to get very high ratings or whatever. I feel like they're just like not universally agreed upon, because people have very specific thriller tastes, is what I have gathered. But this is a 4-star for me. This was really fun, and I genuinely very much enjoyed this. So I knew that Olivia and I shared thriller taste, because I feel like often there are only a couple of people who I really like get thriller recommendations from. I would say like Gabby from Gabby Reads, we tend to like have similar, I would say, thriller taste. Olivia too. Like, the only thing is, sometimes I think Olivia likes stuff that I find a little bit stupid, but sometimes she has banger picks, and this was one of them. So that's not an insult to Olivia's taste. I want to put that out there. I'm just really fucking picky about my thrillers, and I feel like she tends to like ones that are like very heavy on the like domestic drama, and sometimes that works for me and sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, 4 stars. It was good. Can I tell you about something that I don't want to read? I'm so sorry. I wish I could just define all of the ways in which I am not having a good day, but I'm really not here to bitch, so I'm just gonna say I don't know that I want to listen to knockoff Indiana Jones white man explorer adventure story today. I picked up the Davinci Code. I got like 20% in, and I'm not gonna lie, my eyes were like rolling back in my head. I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna fall asleep. Like, this is not doing it for me. I am in fact exhausted, which is probably part of the problem, but I think also this is just not a story for me. Idea behind the Davinci Code is that got a guy and he's solving a mystery. A curator or something for the Louvre is up dead, and he's supposed to solve this mystery. It's kind of the gist of what I'm getting. There's a woman who works for like the French FBI, I guess, who's like helping him, and she is the granddaughter, I believe, of the guy who was killed. So she has some stakes in it, and it just makes it a little bit more juicy, shall we say. But I'm not juiced. I also have like no thoughts in my fucking skull, and neither does he, but he does have a loud mouth, so ignore him. He just threw up under my bed, so that was another shit cherry on the shit Sunday of today. I don't think this one's for me, and I think that's okay. I think, okay, for me not to read this at this moment. Will I maybe pick it back up in the future? If y'all just like scream in the comments that I need to read the Davinci Code, mayhaps I will. Mayhaps I will. Today, however, is not that day. That being said, it feels like a weird place to end this vlog, but I am done, and let's talk about where we've been on this journey, because I feel like I have been making this video forever and I kind of have forgotten some of the books that I've read. We started out with the London Seance Society, which was not for me, but was in fact very much Olivia. And I think if you're someone who likes historical fantasy, I think that one could be for you. Also, if you like, what is it? The Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco, I think you also might like this. Not for me, but for others for sure. September House was a kooky ass horror book, and I think you should pick it up. It's like honestly kind of fun. Perfect for me, maybe not, but like genuinely fun. Words of Radiance, I mean, come on. If you like adult fantasy, why the fuck wouldn't you pick this book up? Like, I like it. Do I understand why Olivia likes it? No, I don't. But I do like this one. Listen for the Lie. Such a fun thriller. And the Davinci Code, you know, sometimes you swing and you miss. Sometimes you have bad days and you don't want to read a book. And that's okay. That is okay. How do I think that Olivia and I's taste align after having done this video? I think that I'm kind of back where I started with Olivia. I feel like I rely heavily on her taste when it comes to certain fantasy books, especially when it comes to slightly more romantic fantasies or YA fantasies. I feel like if she has read it and given it a stamp of approval, I'm probably going to enjoy it. Also thrillers. I feel like I'm good at knowing at this point what thrillers I do and don't enjoy. Like vibe-wise, like if I read a synopsis, I can tell if I'm gonna like the book or not. So if I hear Olivia recommend something and I check it out and the synopsis sounds good, I'm all about it because I know it's gonna be good. You know, we're not gonna vibe on the historical fantasy. It's just not for me. I know it's for her, but it's not for me. And you know, I will say maybe I'm gonna start picking up her horror recommendations, because while the September House was a little bit batshit at the end there, I feel like that is kind of more what I lean towards and gravitate towards if I'm going to pick up a horror book. So I need to start like going to Olivia for horror recommendations. Honestly, it was just a fun time. I think it's funny the couple of times that I have been reading for this video are like the times when I end up texting Olivia too. We'll like go back and forth for like a day at a time, kind of randomly about just like random shit. So it's been nice. It's been nice to like talk to her and also get to read some of her favorite books. Overall, just like genuinely fun experience. And I'm sorry again for not reading all 5 of the books, but I love y'all so much and I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.